Welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 180. We're going to talk about Direwolf from 2009. I rented this from Amazon Prime. I had not seen this before. As always, we start with the prominent crew and cast. You can always find links to a more complete credit list in the show notes. This film was directed by Fred Olen Ray, was written by Dan Golden and Patrick Moran. Special effects makeup was done by Michael De Rosas and Erica N. Hanger. We previously covered Fred Olen Ray when we discussed Tomb of the Werewolf. This feels like another perfect example of his filmmaking style. Dan Golden worked extensively in the low-budget film industry in a variety of roles. We'll eventually see him again when we get to Dances with Werewolves, which he both wrote and directed. Golden wrote Venomous and Buried Alive. He directed Naked Obsession and is known for Broke Sky and Saturday Night Special. Patrick Moran worked extensively in low-budget horror and science fiction films. He wrote and produced the cult video features Vampire Trailer Park and Cheerleader Massacre 2. Michael Del Rosas is a special effects makeup artist, sculptor, director, and founder of Multivision Effects. His impressive credits include The Passion of the Christ, Watchmen, 300, I Am Legend, and Pirates of the Caribbean, along with television series like The Deadliest Warrior. We'll see his work again when we get to Frenzy Moon. Erica N. Hanger had a 5-year career as a special effects makeup artist on low-budget horror films, including Forget Me Not and House of Flesh Mannequins, and as makeup department head on The Blackout. The cast includes Maxwell Caulfield as Sheriff Parker, Jill Gerard as Colonel Hendry, Gregory Paul Smith as the Direwolf, and Ian Patrick Williams as Dr. Renault. Maxwell Caulfield arrived in New York from Glasgow in 1978 and made his film debut in Grease 2. His biggest TV appearance was Dynasty and its spin-off The Colbys. Notable film credits include Empire Records, Gettysburg, and The Man Who Knew Too Little. He voiced James Bond in the video game James Bond 007 Nightfire. Gil Gerard studied chemistry in college but dropped out before graduation. He worked as an industrial chemist and regional manager for a large chemical company. When offered a vice presidency contingent on earning a master's degree, he resigned rather than reveal he lacked a bachelor's degree. He moved to New York to study drama while driving a taxi, landing his first role as an extra in Love Story. After appearing in approximately 400 TV commercials, including as Ford Motor Company spokesman, he secured a leading role on the soap opera The Doctors. A guest appearance on Little House on the Prairie impressed Michael Landon, who cast him in the TV movie Killing Stone. Gerard's career-defining role came in 1979 when he starred as Captain William Buck Rogers in Buck Rogers in the 21st Century, a appointment television viewing show for me as a child. He subsequently appeared in Hear No Evil, Sidekicks, and Earth Force, followed by guest spots on Brotherly Love, Big Easy, Days of Our Lives, and Pacific Blue. He reunited with Buck Rogers co-star Aaron Gray for Nuclear Hurricane and returned to the Buck Rogers universe in James Cawley's web series Buck Rogers Begins. Gerard guest starred on Star Trek Phase 2, voiced Megatronus in Transformers Robots in Disguise, and appeared in The Nice Guys. Gregory Paul Smith described himself as working from the streets of Tromaville to the padded cells of the asylum. He worked on numerous B-movie productions, including roles in films such as I Am Omega, 2012 Doomsday, 100 Million BC, Mega Shark vs. Crocosaurus, and Mega Python vs. Gatoroid. Beyond acting, he worked as a costume designer, producer, and production designer, demonstrating versatility across film production in the independent and direct-to-video market. His most recent work seems to be producing documentaries about genre film history. Ian Patrick Williams is best known for his roles in Superhero Movie, Reanimator, and Dolls. He made numerous television appearances, including roles on shows like Designing Women, Married with Children, Criminal Minds, Modern Family, Rizzoli and Isles, and Days of Our Lives. This is quintessential mid-2000s sci-fi channel fare, competently made within severe budget constraints, but ultimately forgettable. It's not offensively bad, but there's little to distinguish it from dozens of similar TV movies from this era. The practical wolf effects have moments of charm, but the film is dragged down by a thin script, limited scope, and pacing issues. Werewolf completionists, or those nostalgic for Saturday night cable creature features, might find some entertainment here, but casual fans can safely skip this one. Earlier this year, Colossal Biosciences announced the birth of 3 wolves, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, marketed as the world's first de-extinct animals. These genetically modified gray wolves are intended to mimic the extinct direwolf through approximately 20 genetic modifications. The announcement captured public imagination precisely because it seems to fulfill promises made decades earlier in cinema, promises that shape both popular understanding of genetic engineering and scientific ambition itself. The cultural foundation for contemporary de-extinction efforts was laid by Michael Crichton's 1990 novel Jurassic Park and Steven Spielberg's 1993 film adaptation, which brought genetic engineering to mass culture through its depiction of dinosaur blood extracted from a fossilized mosquito mixed with frog DNA to produce dinosaur clones. The film established a narrative template that would recur throughout subsequent decades. Extinct species could be resurrected through biotechnology for commercial purposes, representing both tremendous scientific achievement and profound hubris. The franchise's central thesis that catastrophic consequences emerge from humanity's failure to respect natural boundaries became the dominant framework for understanding de-extinction in popular consciousness. Lower budget productions explored similar themes with different emphasis. Direwolf, also released as Dino Wolf, centers on a genetically modified hybrid of a direwolf and human DNA that escapes from a secret government laboratory. Unlike Jurassic Park's critique of capitalist exploitation, this film engages with government bioweapons research and military applications of genetic engineering. The hybridity, combining human and animal DNA rather than merely resurrecting an extinct species, points towards concerns about the boundaries of human identity and the instrumentalization of species for strategic purposes. The actual science has proven both more modest and more controversial than cinematic visions suggested. Colossal used CRISPR technology to modify gray wolf genes, creating what they describe as a hybrid genome rather than a true resurrection. Critics argue that what has been created is not a dire wolf, but rather a designer wolf with selected traits chosen to approximate dire wolf appearance. This reveals a fundamental tension between morphological resemblance and ecological authenticity, between creating something that looks like a dire wolf and creating something that is a dire wolf in any meaningful biological sense. Now, I understand the complexity of defining what a species is, but at the same time, if it looks like a dire wolf and howls like a dire wolf, well, then it's the closest thing to a dire wolf that we have. Proponents argue that technologies developed for de-extinction can help rescue endangered species, pointing to applications like Colossal's work with red wolves. Yet this defense encounters the same philosophical problem that Jurassic Park dramatized: the difficulty of predicting consequences when manipulating complex biological systems. If the purpose of de-extinction is ecological restoration, is creating animals that merely resemble extinct species without replicating their ecological functions enough? Conversely, any attempt to intentionally influence ecosystems carries that risk. The risk of not acting might be the bigger risk. The births of Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi mark the first real-world test of whether de-extinction will translate from fiction to functional science. The controversy surrounding their classification suggests that cinema's simplistic narratives of resurrection and catastrophe, while culturally powerful, don't capture the full, messy ambiguities of actually manipulating life at the genetic level. Are these animals dire wolves, designer dogs, conservation tools? They may just be all three of those simultaneously. Ongoing efforts to resurrect woolly mammoths, thylacines, and dodos will continue to unfold against this dual backdrop of scientific possibility and cinematic precedent. Whether these projects prove to be genuine conservation breakthroughs or expensive exercises in morphological mimicry may matter less than what they reveal about humanity's relationship to extinction itself. Our simultaneous capacity to cause it, our desire to reverse it, and our persistent inability to fully anticipate the consequences of either action. Consequences first imagined not in laboratories, but on movie screens. So let's cover the synopsis. Security guard Ed and technician Jamie flirt sweetly. He's checking out an intermittent door alarm when a massive beast attacks and kills him. Jamie dies trying to call out and warn Dr. Renault. Sheriff Parker and game warden Jim, father and foster son, discuss some odd goings-on around town. Jim's real dad is in prison for shooting his mom, which is why Jim refuses to carry a gun. We meet a few locals who will clearly end up werewolf chow at some point. Colonel Hendry lets us know the secret research station was a military testing base. 2 agents are dispatched to figure out what has happened. A deer hunter is the next victim of the direwolf. He gets a few shots off before he's torn to ribbons. Jim investigates the shots and finds what's left of the hunter. Agents Reed and Connors arrive at Clark Biogen Labs. They find Dr. Renault and Tina Wilson, who explain what's going on. Biogen brought the direwolf, an extinct species that died out around 10,000 years ago, back through genetic engineering for potential military applications. They made a direwolf human hybrid. Jim's ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend, well, that's complicated, who's a jerk, is the next victim. Jim finds the body and starts looking for Amber. Sheriff Parker shows up to Biogen. The agents try to keep him in the dark, feeding him a line about an escaped gray wolf and cancer research. Colonel Hendry wants the beast captured, alive. The Biogen crew hook up with Jim and head out to Devil's Canyon to stop the gray wolf. Meanwhile, the dire wolf keeps racking up a body count. Agent Reed shoots it with a tranquilizer dart. That doesn't stop it from killing a couple more local idiots. Everyone eventually ends up at the game warden's station. Well, Agent Connors dies before getting there. That's when we find out Tina has some influence over the beast. When the beast attacks Sheriff Parker, Jim stabs it a lot. It still runs off. Tina somehow intuits it's headed back to the lab. The 4 current survivors beat it back to find Dr. Renault starting to create a second beast. It turns out the beast has both Dr. Renault's and Tina's DNA mixed with the direwolf DNA. Jim puts an end to the experiments. The direwolf ends Dr. Renault. Tina lures it onto a metal plate and electrocutes it. The end. The transformation here is conceptual, an extinct creature transformed from ancient DNA into modern reality through genetic engineering. The lack of traditional werewolf transformation mythology is actually one of the film's more interesting choices. It has much more to do with Jurassic Park than it does with werewolves. Now, the decision to blend the direwolf DNA with human stem cells does create a wolfman of a kind, just not a werewolf. Which means, technically, Direwolf isn't a werewolf film. It is a creature feature. However, its inclusion in werewolf discussions is understandable given the title and the wolf-based human hybrid threat. The film does not refer to any traditional werewolf lore. There is no silver, there are no full moons, no curses or transformations. This is just science gone horribly wrong. The film does engage briefly with real paleontology. Canis dirus was a real species that lived in the Americas during the Pleistocene epoch, going extinct about 10,000 years ago. They were larger and more robust than modern gray wolves, with jaws strong enough to crush bone. The La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles have yielded thousands of dire wolf fossils, more than any other mammal found out there, and this film points that out. I know that I could talk about playing God and scientific hubris again, but we've done that a lot on this channel. Check out previous discussions on the Mad Monster, Project Metal Beast, or the Creeps, among others. Instead, I'd like to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. The idea that not all low-budget films are created equal. We tend to lump everything together if it doesn't have like real Hollywood money behind it, but that misses some very important distinctions in my opinion. There are actually different categories of low-budget filmmaking, each with its own characteristics and constraints. Let me use Fred Olen Ray as an example. His films are absolutely low budget, but there's a world of difference between a Fred Olen Ray film and something from David "The Rock" Nelson or Andy Milligan. Ray makes what I'd call professional low-budget films, a specific category with its own standards. So what makes a film professionally low budget? It's only partially about the money. It's also about how you spend it and what standards you maintain. These productions are using professional equipment. Maybe not the newest cameras, but real cinema cameras with proper dynamic range and color science. They have actual audio departments. Someone's running a boom mic, monitoring levels, and mixing it properly in post. You're not getting wild volume jumps or unintelligible dialogue. Lighting is deliberate. They're working fast with minimal setups for sure, but they're using actual lights and controlling exposure. You can see what's happening, and it looks intentional rather than accidental. Production design gets attention. Sets, they might look like sets that were built, but they're designed. Props and wardrobe are considered choices. They're not whatever the cast could wear that day. Pre-production matters enormously. These filmmakers storyboard. They make shot lists and plan their coverage. When they reach the editing room, they have the footage they need. This planning compensates for limited shooting schedules. The cast includes people who know what they're doing. Maybe a recognizable face working for scale mixed with solid character actors. Crucially, there is experience on set, whether that's the director, the DP, or key crew members. This approach costs a little more. Equipment rentals, crews, and actors at reduced rates, insurance, and permits. You're looking at $50,000 to $500,000, but these films can make that money back. Their products distributors will buy. They get onto streaming platforms, cable channels, and international markets. The production values don't distract from the story. For filmmakers, this creates sustainable careers. Now, below the professional tier, passion drives everything, but professional resources just aren't available. Filmmakers, like we've mentioned, David "The Rock" Nelson and Andy Milligan, work here. These productions are using consumer-grade cameras. They're decent in good conditions, but they struggle in low light, and they don't pan great. The real giveaway is always the audio. Dialogue on camera mics, levels jumping everywhere, room echo, background noise cutting in and out jarringly. Lighting is what's ever available. Inside, they're using existing lamps. Outside, they're at the mercy of the weather. Exposure changes dramatically from shot to shot. Without detailed storyboards and shot lists, problems emerge in editing, coverage gaps, scenes that don't cut together quite right, and continuity errors. The cast is mostly friends, family, community theater people working for free. Maybe one or two have some training, but most bring enthusiasm rather than technique. When they attempt effects, you can see the limitations clearly. This costs very little, a few hundred to maybe a few $1,000s. Equipment is owned or borrowed. Everyone works for experience and pizza, and the locations are usually free. The benefits are personal. Filmmakers learn by doing. They build networks, and they complete something that proves their commitment. But these films seldom make money. The technical limitations prevent a broad traditional distribution, and they don't find a lot of traction on streaming services. Financially, the professional low-budget film requires exponentially more investment, but it's the only tier with a realistic revenue potential. Ray's films made profits because they were sellable products. Amateur productions rarely break even, but limited investment means a limited risk. For career development, the professional approach builds real credentials. You can prove you can manage productions and deliver products meeting professional standards. Enthusiast productions build skills, but employers can't tell if technical failures come from budget or from lack of skill. Interestingly, the amateur tier sometimes offers more artistic freedom. Without investors to satisfy, filmmakers pursue idiosyncratic visions. Some truly innovative low-budget films emerge precisely because conventional approaches weren't possible. Professional low-budget films often face more creative restrictions because they have to be marketable. For general audiences, professional low-budget films are suitable. Amateur productions appeal pretty much only to niche audiences, cult film enthusiasts, and local filmmaking supporters. The technical limitations create barriers for the wider mainstream viewers. The distinction between these tiers isn't about artistic merit or creativity. They both have that. It's about professional standards, technical competence, and intended outcomes. Fred Olen Ray's films occupy a different category than Andy Milligan's, not because one was more creative or passionate, but because Ray consistently maintained professional production standards within his budgetary constraints. Understanding this taxonomy helps filmmakers make informed decisions about resources and set realistic goals. It helps audiences and critics evaluate low-budget films fairly, appreciating what filmmakers accomplish within their specific constraints. The landscape of low-budget cinema is richer and way more diverse than simple categories of good or bad. Each tier has its place, its purpose, and its own definition of success. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed or what you noticed. Next, I plan on discussing Underworld: Rise of the Lycans, released in 2009. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back here next episode.